So, so Brother Damani would like to share some words of, whatever it is that he wished to share about himself, about his journey, and about any word of wisdom that he'd like to give us, inshallah. There's always someone who's looking at the community from outside for a while and then comes in. You have an insight that we don't quite know until we listen and hear, inshallah. Brother Damani, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As I said, I would just offer my apologies for mix-up and not being on time. But alhamdulillah, Allah knows best. My story. Well, my story goes back, I would say my introduction to Islam came as a child. Informally, the introduction was as a child. When I was, one of the things about myself, my name, Damani, is an African name. And my parents gave me that name. They gave me the name Damani. They gave my sister her name, Anika, and my brother's name, Chunga. These are all African names, which carried some meaning. Now, I was a product of parents who grew up they actually were around the whole civil rights era. And so they chose to give us names that had some meaning. And I'm telling you because it has some connection to my story. As a result, throughout my entire youth, I always knew that I was a little bit different than other people. I had the name Damani, but I was born in Michigan, a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. So, I was just like everybody else, but there was something different about me. My parents were Christian, and still are. They were in the church, grew up in the Baptist church, Methodist church. Like many African American families, that's what their history was growing up in the church. And they kind of passed a little bit on to me when I was a child. So we grew up with that as a backdrop. Like many, I would say a lot of people that come from a Christian background, it is part of the culture. You don't necessarily understand in your heart, as I didn't, the ideology, but it's like a default. I don't know what else I'm going to say, but that's what I am, because that's what my parents are, my relatives, my grandparents, and that's what we were. But if you asked me to explain the doctrine, I'd be lost. So that was kind of my backdrop growing up. My father was a little bit more, as he called himself, a skeptical type of Christian. So he knew that was his heritage, but there were things we didn't do growing up. And came to the holidays, I didn't grow up with the Santa Claus. Dad said, no, we got the stuff for you. So those are some of the things I grew up with. But I also, as I said, I had a little bit of introduction to Muslims, so to speak, as a child. And maybe I'd say middle school, there were some friends of my parents who, one person was Muslim, but I didn't really know what that meant. But we knew that they prayed and they did something a little different, and I didn't pay much attention to it. So most of the time, growing up as a child, I had this thing that made me different from everybody else. Damani had a meaning, it meant thoughtful, to think. Yeah, and my middle name is Konata, which means man of high standing, man of nobility.
Oh.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I didn't grow into that. And so I had that thing that was a little bit different about me growing up. So we, like most other families, we were Christian. They would go to church and those kinds of things. And I was baptized Baptist. I was baptized Methodist. I did all that stuff. I was in the youth choir. And it's just, that's what you connected to. I would say when I went to high school, well, let me kind of backtrack. I'll tell you about my exposure to Islam. I remember when I was a child, there was a movie out called Roots. Remember Roots? So they have Roots in there, and there was a scene where Kunta Kinte is praying to Allah, asking for help and guidance. And so I remember watching that scene, and I was like, yeah, I was into it. And he said Allah. I said, oh man, what is Allah? I was like, oh, I was trying to substitute the word Allah with something else that I can relate to it. And I just kind of watched it, and oh, okay, that was pretty interesting. Then I got into high school, and grew up in high school around the time of the late 80s, and it was another time period going into the early 90s where things got to be very much as a rebirth of a conscientious period in America for people of African American descent. So you had like the 60s, then you had the late 80s and early 90s. And that was a time when a lot of people were kind of trying to discover themselves. I, up to that point, never had a feeling of knowing or believing that I was a Christian. That's what I carried with me, and I would defend it because I had nothing else to fall back on. I had friends that were maybe Muslim, but unfortunately some of them did the same stuff that everyone else was doing back then. So it just had a different name, and they had maybe a name that was maybe ethnic to me. And so that was part of my exposure. But when I got to college, my first year of college, there was a lot of a change. And what people understand is that when you are, many people coming from, I'm just going to speak for myself and my family, coming from a background that's Jewish, well, Christian background, we think we believe in God, they believe in God. But that belief means a Trinity. To explain it, no, but we just kind of say, okay, but I believe in one God, but it's three. And so that's kind of like what the situation was. Going to college and getting on my own, I was able to think for myself. I remember my first year of college. It was during this era again of a lot of resurgence of thinking and thought and, so to speak, nationalist thought going around him. And there were a bunch of speakers coming onto campus. And these speakers would talk about different topics. They talk about self-help. They talked about identity. They talked about heritage. Talked about things that really appealed to a person who was coming from my background. And they talked about somewhat spirituality as a result. So I would go to all these different lectures, and I would watch, and I would listen, and I would get intrigued, and I was thinking, and I was like, what about me? You know, what is that? What, does it make sense to me? You know, what am I supposed to be like? And then I started questioning things, and you start to think, and I started questioning, like, well, my background is this, from Christianity, but it doesn't quite make sense to me. But there's nothing else for me to look at. And when I went to college, it kind of changed. So I started to go to speakers, and I started to look, and I used to watch and listen. And there was at one point, while I was going to lectures, I got intrigued to start to read and to study, and I started studying things about different aspects of Christianity. I started studying things about African and Arab, Asiatic culture, and I started reading those things. And my mind started opening up. I started to reflect more. And then there was a group that would come to campus that we know as the Nation of Islam. Now, for people coming from an African American background, many of their first exposures back then, 20-something years ago, was to the Nation. That was what their exposure was, because they were coming around to these people, to the communities, and talking about self-help and saying things that were appealing to people because it kind of made you feel important and kind of explained some of the oppression that you went through or some of your relatives went through. And I got exposed to some of their literature. But I did not accept their ideology because it didn't quite make sense to me either. But it made me question. And there was one point where they had a newspaper that was published, and that newspaper had ayats from the Quran. And I picked one up and I looked at it and I was like, oh wow. So it made some sense to me. And I looked behind some of the other things about them and I said, no, that doesn't quite make sense to me. And then my interest kind of sparked a little bit. And then going into my, hopefully I'm not being too long-winded, but I want to let it express this to you. So I went through this period of time of becoming not associated with a religion. If my parents asked me, I would say I was Christian. Someone else asked me that, but in my heart, nothing was connecting there. I went to finish my freshman year of college, and
Where is it?
University of Maryland.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I was at College Park. So that was a great period of time in my life because I was exposed to so many different things, so many different ideologies, and it was just a great time. So I was at University of Maryland. That's where I was going to school and studying. So I went through the first year, and I think after my first year I had a lot of exposure to heritage and history. And then I would say my second year of college, still on the same track of exploring, thinking that I probably had an idea. Never really exposed to Islam totally as a whole, but getting bits and pieces. And then I had a roommate who I only had him for one semester. Just one semester at school. And he was a guy who, if you know about University of Maryland, you have University College, which is kind of like the evening kind of program. He was a guy that just came in from Connecticut, and he was going to sit there, and he was taking classes at UMUC, but he was able to room on campus in my dorm. I thought, this is cool, this is great. So we were roommates. At that time, I became a person who was just thinking that I knew I was doing the right things, but really just following the crowd, because the crowd, basically your morality was dependent upon the people around you and what they were doing, what they were thinking. So, hey, parties, females, all of that stuff, that seemed to be normal. So he became my roommate. And then there was a point in time when he had a friend in another dorm whose roommate was from Pakistan. And by that time I had read a little bit. I read stuff about the nation. I read the whole books about them. I read some other literature. And he came to the room and he said, hey, this is my friend. His name was, I don't know what the brother's name was. It didn't make a difference to me, but he came back to the room with the Quran. And he said, my friend's roommate, he's real deep, man. He's like really knowledgeable. And he came back with this book, and he said I could take it and look at it. And he said, but he told me, don't bring it to the bathroom. I was like, oh man, don't bring it to the bathroom. Okay, this must be deep, okay. This is cool. So he came back with this Quran, and he had it in our room. And I was getting curious. I said, well, what is in this book? And what made it seem to be so serious? Now, I had known Muslims to be, if someone said they were Muslim, they were like on a different level of spirituality or just discipline, and they were like way up here, and I was like, no, I'm not up there to contemplate. But I got the Quran and I took it and I opened up a page and I started to read. And I was reading it and I noticed the first things that were jumping out to me were ayats that, I mean, I don't even think, I didn't see, I think one of the first ayats I saw was about Musa, alayhi salam, and then about something about Abraham. And then I saw prophets that I knew from the Bible. And there was a connection. Like, okay, that makes some sense to me. And so every day I would kind of sneak and take a look at it and give it back to my roommate. And And it got to the point where I got very curious. I think I went home at one point. I think my father, someone, or somebody had some pamphlet about Islam somewhere in the house. I think it was the point I looked at it, and then I put it back on the shelf. I didn't really read it. But my curiosity got to the point where I decided that I wanted to go. My roommate said that his friend said that these Muslims have these meetings at the union on Fridays. And there's these meetings they have. And so I was better at scheduling back then than I am right now, but I had an organizer, and I wrote down the organizer, these Muslim meetings on Fridays, they have them around lunchtime. I was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna do that. So I wrote on my calendar, go to the Muslim meeting and find out about Islam. That was a Monday. Then on that Wednesday, I was in college, and in the college scene, there's fraternity life and sorority life. So I put down my calendar to go to the Muslim meeting thing on that Friday. On that Wednesday, I got called to join a fraternity. And I did that, and then Islam was put right on the shelf. And just went to the other side. And that became my preoccupation for two more years of college. But at the same time, I kept getting reminders. I would watch something on TV, something about Islam. I watched some celebrities embrace Islam. And I was like, wow, it's back in my face again. There was a booklet, I saw some things that was back in my face. It's constantly reminding me, Allah kept reminding me. So I finished college, and went through some tribulations in college through my social activities, fraternity life, and there were some tribulations, but it was just things that happened. And then I got into law school, and that's when things started to change again. The reminders are there. I went to, it was after at the beginning of the year, I got curious again. I said I need to make a decision, and I decided to go to a place to find another Quran. And I found this place, and it happened to be a Nation of Islam store. I went in there, and they had the version, or the green version, I forgot the Molina guy's version of the Quran. I took it from the shelf, and I got it, and I went back, put it in a paper bag, I wrapped it up, and I went back home, and I was living at home, and I put it up on my shelf, and I hid it underneath some clothes, and didn't let anyone know that I was reading. So I would read a little back and forth. My interest was growing. And then I finally got to the point towards the end of my first year. And during that time period, in the 90s, earlier 90s, getting things like incense and colognes and oils, that was all seemed like you were kind of cool. So I used to do that. So one day, I decided to go to Lexington Market in Baltimore. And I was walking to Lexington Market, and I saw a stand. And this is an important thing about, we talk about dawah, we're talking about people not being, having the understanding to express Islam to people who ask, because you don't know at what level a person is. You have no idea. Every person that you meet is a potential Muslim. If they're not, there's potential. You really don't know where they are in their life. But so I decided to go to the market, and I saw this stand. There was a stand of two young brothers, 19, 18 maybe, and they were selling incense, selling cologne, selling all these things. And I looked at them, and they were talking to an older couple, must have been in their 50s, man and wife, and they were just sitting talking. They were Christians, they were talking about Islam to these people, and I was listening. And I was just kind of sitting back and listening to them. And by that time, I was kind of had questions, because a lot of different ideas were coming to me, different types of ideas about Islam. Oh, I'm sorry.
Still have time.
Alhamdulillah. So at that point, I decided that I was going to listen to these guys, and they were talking, and I got very interested. And so the couple walked away. the couple just walked away. And I sat there and I looked at him. And I said, I need to ask him some questions because I don't know some things. So I went up to one of the brothers. I was like, hey, I saw you talk to this couple about Islam. I said, well, what do you believe in? And he told me some things he believed in. And then I asked him, I said, well, what about this one group? There was a group called, some Nubian Islamic Community, was some sect of something that appealed to people based upon skin color and based upon nationality. And I said, well, what about them? He said, no, that's not Islam. That's not the real Islam. That's not okay. There wasn't a nation. There was this place called, they were called the, not even more science.
Hebrew something?
Hebrew Israelites, and back then they were the Islamic Hebrew Israelites or something. So they looked kind of like Sunni whatever, but they were white and they're tall, and they do a lot of scaring tactics. So you think they had this book called Leviathan 666, and it was about, the end of the world, and you had to be a part of this saved group of 144, this is kind of 144,000 people, and all of this kind of stuff that was in the book. It was worth, no, they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. It was a group, and I think they're still around, but they have some portions back then that seemed to be Sunni, seemed to be Orthodox, but they had a lot of other things that were like Nation and Jehovah's Witnesses. But for a person who's coming from a people who didn't have a background, the ideology, they didn't know what the history was appealing, because you want a connection. And that's what I asked this guy about. I said, what about this group of people? And he said, no, that's not Islam. I said, okay. They invited me. He said, well, come to our masjid. I said, what's the masjid? That's the mosque. I said, okay. He said, come on these Wednesday nights. In fact, it's tomorrow night. And we have some dinner, and we have food, and we'll tell you something about Islam. And I said, okay, I'll go. Now, I'm from Colombia. I was raised in Colombia, in the suburbs. So I'm in Baltimore City, Lexington Market. And the brother says, come to our masjid, and we'll have some food for you, and we'll talk to you about Islam. I said, well, I'll go. Let me go. So I go. This masjid is, do you want to know, or is it not important? No, it's Masjid al-Haq. Baltimore City. Yeah, Masjid al-Haq, right. So they had these, back then, I think they still do, they had this nights when they feed the indigent and give them food and talk about Islam. So I said, let me go. I wasn't indigent, so I go to this meeting, and I meet the same Brother Ali. I'm going to call him Brother Ali. I meet Brother Ali, I'm here, let me see what's going on. So we sit down, and they bring us into this hall where they used to serve lunches, and they used to have all the little buffet line. And so, but all the folks that are there are guys coming from jail, or they're, again, they're just trying to get themselves back on their feet, they're coming from, substance problems, and you have other folks, and I'm sitting in his brother, I think his brother's name was Rashid. This is some time ago, he's giving a lecture, writing things on the board, and I'm looking, watching, and I'm like, you know what, yeah, okay, I kind of know something about this. And so he finishes his lecture. He says to me, you have any questions? I said, well, I kind of know some of your basics, but I can't do the things you guys do, and it's just, I can't do that stuff. I don't think I'm disciplined enough. And I said, but also, I said, I'm not like these other guys here. I was just suburban arrogant, but, so I mean, I don't need a new life. I don't do, I didn't do a lot of the crazy stuff my peers did. I didn't get into alcohol, I didn't do drugs, I didn't do any of those things before becoming a Muslim. And I said, I'm not like these folks here. He said, no, I said, I know. He said, I noticed something different about you. I said, yeah. I said, it's not my story. Then the brother, I call him Brother Ali, he said, well, Damani, I'm gonna take you upstairs. And he said, I'm gonna take you to where they make wudu. I said, what is this wudu thing? So let me go over. So I follow him over there, and he shows me how Muslims make wudu. And he showed me he said, you wash your hands, and then you put water in your mouth, and you put it in your nose. And I said, why don't you try it, Damani? I said, I'll try it. I was like, oh my God, what is this? So it was like, felt very weird, but it was like, there's something different about this. I felt clean. Then he took me upstairs to the Masala. And he had a Quran out. And he opened it. And I don't remember what ayah it was, but he went through some things. And there were brothers up there after Isha, and they were laying, and it was in May, it was in the springtime, late May, and he sat there and he read through some ayahs, and he said, after he finished, he said, you know what? He said, I've given you information. He said, now you know. And now you're accountable. I was like, man, why did you say that? He said, yeah, now you're accountable. And I've kind of given you information. So I took that, I didn't show my emotion. And he told me to come back. I said, well, that's good. And I finished and left. And he told me to come back on a Friday to Juma. I said, I'll come back again and take a look, because I wasn't convinced. My heart kind of knew. I would say what my heart knew. As Allah says sometimes, your heart knows. But your mind and your lips haven't said it yet. So I came back on that Friday for the Juma prayer, and I came back to the masjid, and I sat in the back. And I watched the people coming through for Juma. And I saw brothers coming in looking from all walks of life. Brothers who looked like me, brothers who were Syrian, brothers who were Egyptian, Pakistan, India, African. And then I looked and I saw this guy come in. I saw this brother come in, and he had on a shalwar kameez, and it was burgundy, and he had a kufi on, but it was like kaleidoscope. And it was so hippie looking. I was like, well, who is this guy coming in here to the masjid dressed like this? And he had a big red beard, and he was an American brother, a European American brother. And I saw him walk in there. And he sat down and greeted the brothers. I was like, wow, this is something, this is it. And there was a brother who was with me now, and for some reason he was dressed in white. And now that I reflect on it, it almost looked like he had on something. He almost looked like he had on ihram, and the way he was dressed. It was springtime. I don't know, maybe he was going to make home. I'm not sure, but he was sitting talking to me, and the whole time I'm listening to the khutbah, and I didn't hear anything. I was totally in the daze. And so when I said to myself, I said, if you don't do something now, I said, you could die tomorrow. And there's no excuse. And so I sat there, finished the prayer, and I said to him, I want to do this now. I said, I want to become a Muslim today. And they were like, you sure right now? I said, no, right now, I want to become a Muslim. And so then we finished Juma, and I went outside, and if you know how Masjid al-Haq is, and I walked outside downstairs. And I told him, I want to become a Muslim. And so the brothers were like, brother, you must become a Muslim, man, becomes a Muslim, and everybody was coming out, and I stood outside. I remember the shirt they had on. I remember the jeans, and took my shower and ran outside in the street. And it was the most amazing thing. And I sat there and I thought to myself, I was like, I had to make that step. And I took the step. And that began my introduction to Islam. Alhamdulillah. But for new Muslims, it just starts there. For most Muslims, it just starts. All of us, we start every day. I can go on if you want to tell you. I can tell you what happened after that. So we have time. So after that, I went, and the brother told me, okay. He told me to hurry, go home, wash all your clothes, wash yourself, take a shower, everything on you dirty. It's like, oh my God, tell me everything. You can't do this. You need to tell everybody. So, and it was during the time of the early 90s. It was, we all know what was happening in the early 90s around. There's a lot of information coming in, a lot of us are trying to refocus, regenerate our attention to what we believe to be the correct way of practicing Islam. So people have a lot of good intentions, were throwing a lot of stuff at me. And I went home and I sat there and I didn't tell anybody, I was scared. I didn't want to tell my parents because it was like, I felt kind of like, they're not going to understand. They're going to think I'm some crazy person. They're going to think I'm out there on the street selling newspapers or bean pies or whatever. And so I sat in my house and I was living at home and I just had this guilt feeling that I can't hide this. And I thought I was going to hide it for a few days or weeks or months, but I couldn't. Sat down and I was with my parents. We were in the family room. I said, I became a Muslim. I'm a Muslim now. And they were like, people thought I was crazy. They didn't know. They were upset. And for new Muslims, that's what they go through. We're attracted to the deen. We're attracted to what is being presented to us as Islam. But we don't have that community support. We don't have it. We may have it when we're at the masjid. We may have it at a function. We may have it at a dinner. But our relatives they're doing something different during holiday times. Or they're doing something different when we go home. And we're coming back sometimes. We have a jihad almost every day. We're going home. Every time we see a family, it's our own personal jihad that we're struggling with. And at that point, I was going through it. But I remembered the brother told me to immediately keep reading Quran and make your prayer. I didn't know how to pray. I couldn't memorize anything. But I knew the movements. He said, do this, do that, do that. I said, I'm just going to do it. Give me the time, man. What am I supposed to do? And Allah kept me pretty steadfast because it was a very trying period. And for a lot of new Muslims, we need more than just a greeting and a hello and a hug. It's like, what else do you need, brother? And also know that they're dealing with some other issues. Sisters are doing a lot different issues than brothers. They need that support. So my beginning of becoming a Muslim was much more challenging. My parents they think that we're rejecting them. If you think about anyone changing religion, the parents think that you're rejecting them. It's like you rejected our culture. You rejected me. I said, no, I don't reject you. I just don't believe. And I said, well, you don't really believe that either, right, Mom and Dad? But they have nothing else to fall back on. And that's the understanding. So that was a very, very trying period. My brother thought I was crazy. My sister, she was indifferent. That's just how she was. And person who was my personal interest at that time, she thought I was nuts and crazy. And I said, well, look. And people thought it was a phase. He's going through a phase. It's not a phase. No, alhamdulillah, it was not a phase. over the years, I mean, if you want to go past what's happened since that time, but you have to, just as a thing for the community that we have to understand with Muslims and reverts, and that we want a community. A lot of us are coming to Islam because we're attracted to what Islam presents. Sometimes as a person, other times we're studying, we are looking, we're trying to figure this thing out. And we want the support. And because, you know, a lot of us, you know, you go home to your families, it's time for Ramadan, you have iftar set up, you go to your friends for iftar, your family, you have all that set up. For us, and you know, for me in the beginning, it was nothing like that. It was, you know, it was not like that. Unless, especially if you're dependent upon where you're living. You know, if you're in a city, if you're around a certain message, you go right there. But if you're not, you don't have that. And so you get a book, you get a prayer guide, you get some do's and don'ts, and Assalamu alaikum. You know? And it's just because people, you know, we're human beings, we think it's not my burden, that someone else is going to take care of that. But that one little thing helps. What was good for me was that there was a family. I mean, I was just me and no one else was Muslim. And there was a family who invited me to come to their house during Eid. It was a guy I grew up with, and he said, yo, come down with us, Damani. Dude, this is what we do. I was like, great, thanks, man, because I don't know what's going on. And then there were brothers who I met when I first became Muslim, like Imam Mahmoud. And in my first year, and being welcoming, being open, you know, and making you feel welcome. It's so important. Alhamdulillah, after I took Shahada, my person who was my love interest, we engaged until she became Muslim, Sister Zell, so she became Muslim. Then sometime after that, my brother, he accepted Islam. And he lives in Abu Dhabi, which is where I'm going next week. He accepted Islam. And then later my sister. And you never can tell. And you never know what someone is thinking. You never know what influence you have on someone else. And you don't know where they are spiritually. You can't assume. And I would tell my friends and tell brothers and sisters that Islam, from my understanding of being around brothers who are knowledgeable and sisters that are knowledgeable, it is not a closed club. It's not a closed club. And what I mean by that is that I don't have it locked down to myself and sisters or brothers from this area. We don't have it all. It's not just our thing. No, we have to continue to express and open this message to other people and welcome them when they come on board too. Alhamdulillah. Any questions, inshallah? Yes?
In the beginning, did you have a feeling of alienating yourself from your own self? Did you have, say, were you observing your own self from outside?
Good question. Did I feel like I was outside of myself, alienating myself? In the beginning, yes, and to an extent. Because all these things are new. How you wash, getting up, no longer sleeping in. So the sleep-in days, they were done. For me, because I started to pray, you know, not everybody does that, and everybody can do that. But immediately, I took Shahada at Dhuhr, at Jummah, I made Asr, doing what I could do. I didn't know what I was doing. But I felt outside myself to an extent because I'm doing a lot of things that I'm not used to doing. I'm just not used to doing those things. And you're trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, and people telling you what you should and should not do, which is a challenge.
Yes.
parents are still Christian or they?
Yeah, the interesting thing about my parents are still hold on to the Christian idea, the name. All of their grandkids are Muslim. All of their kids are Muslim. My father, I make dua because I talk to my dad and he says Allah like I say Allah. He says inshallah like I say inshallah when he's talking to me. He will say a lot of different things. My mom, she's, when my kids were growing up, my son, Tajuddin, my daughter Anissa, during the Eid time, my parents I said, well, look, I celebrate Eid now. They're like, well, what is that? Well, did the kids get presents? I said, get presents. So they would do that and accommodate. Yeah, brother.
Not a question, but the similarities between you and I.
Yes, sir.
I'm the first Muslim in my family. So from that, my son, now all my sons, and my mother took a shot at 83.
SubhanAllah. Well, that's the whole thing.
All I can say is don't give up.
I'm not going to give up, brother.
I told my mother, an amazing thing is that, SubhanAllah, my mother, they found that she had cancer, stage 4.
Yes, sir.
And I asked her, I said, Mom, if there's anything you ever done for me, I was given a dawah for years.
Yeah.
I said, Mom, this, you have to, la ilaha illallah. Show us some more.
Yeah.
She took a shahada at 83. Wow. And now, 1 year later, stage 4 cancer is all gone.
SubhanAllah. Allahu Akbar.
I can't find one trace of cancer.
Oh, man. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, SubhanAllah.
Still getting her strength back, but
yeah.
they cannot find no signs.
No signs of cancer.
When they gave her 6 months.
Alhamdulillah. 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 Yeah, you can't give up. You really can't give up on them. Yeah, that's the thing about it. That's one thing I just remembered too is, and I used to talk to Imam Mahmoud about this when I was younger a little bit, that when we see people that we're always representing to some extent Islam, no matter where you are, and we're not perfect, and we correct ourselves. But when I would tell other new Muslims that I would meet, and I told it to my sister, I told it to my brother, I said, Islam is perfect, but Muslims are not always perfect. And you have to remember that. So no matter what's going on out there, the deen that we have is perfect. There's no flaws. There's nothing that needs to be changed, nothing added. Sometimes we fall short. And that kept me going through whenever I would go and deal with situations, or even myself, situations that weren't the best situations. Just remembering that, it's critical. Yes. I could talk about this all night, but I have to. I could talk about it all night, man. All night long.
You mentioned about you brothers, sisters coming to Islam.
Yes.
Just congratulations, hug, shake hand. Inshallah, it's not enough. So, what can we do there to form some kind of organization, or that we need to do some work there?
Yeah, and it's you think about that, because when people take Shahada, for many people when they take Shahada, it's a tremendous step. It's a tremendous step. And they are taking a step into Islam and out of all the other things that they were growing up with. And that also comes with support that they had before. And the people that we're going away from are coming at us too about why do we make that decision? How are they treating you? For us, I think as Muslims, if we have within the masajids or organizations that it doesn't take much, someone to follow up with these brothers and sisters. And even when you are yourself taking upon yourself to invite that brother or sister, you don't have to have a committee position or anything like that. Just say, hey sisters, look, we're having tea. You want to come and sit down and have some tea? You know, come by the house. Come over to my house when we have dinner. You know, and then, just you have to open the door to that. And people, they do welcome it tremendously. I mean, I did. And I think I was just blessed by Allah to have been around a community at those times that was welcoming, to an extent, fairly welcoming. And, but inshallah, I don't know if I want to prolong much more than this. I probably talked too much already. But yes, go ahead, my son.
How much old you were when you were a kid?
When you accept Islam, you mean?
Yes, so I'm going to show my age now. I was 23. 23. Yeah, I was 23 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You took the Shahada when you were 23 years old?
Yes.
SubhanAllah, you met with the Quran.
Huh?
You met with the Quran.
SubhanAllah.
23 years.
That's right, yeah, 23, right? Right? No, not there at all. But yeah, I was 23. Yeah, so it was a big deal.
So as you are 28 now,
Yes, sir. I love it, yes. Because not much grown and beard yet, but yes, but it does, it goes by fairly fast. Yeah, so I just wouldn't imagine. I talked to my kids and my son, he's now at University of Maryland. Alhamdulillah, he's a freshman there. He's at NIST with his sister. You know, at the embassy, he's active in the MSA there. So I mean, and everybody knows my son, but you know, the time goes by fast. And alhamdulillah, it goes by very fast. It does. Yes, sir.
Did you find something from your previous life that was really hard for you to abandon?
Good point. Good question. There's always something that people have a difficult time abandoning and leaving. For some people, it may be holidays. For others, it may be a substance that they used to have a lot. For me, it is probably, I mean, alhamdulillah, I didn't have a substance issue. Because I was, the time period, I wasn't eating pork. That wasn't an issue for me because that's just the time period I was getting around to things. For me, it may be that the more difficult thing would be certain, my friends, your friends, certain friends. I've lost a number of, I say I lost friends, I lost their steady company naturally because I'm not doing the things that they want to do anymore. So that's what was probably more difficult, and let them understand. And that some friends I forced them away too. Wise and not as wise, but I did. Some of the friendships were rekindled, but they still have an understanding that we still got to know where we stand. So long as they can respect that, we're cool, we're fine. But if you don't respect it, I just can't be around you.
did you find any good friend besides Sheikh Mahmoud?
Any good friends? I've had a lot of good friends. I mean, there's a lot of, alhamdulillah, Sheikh Mahmoud, when I was, like I said, the one funniest thing I tell the story to my kids, Sheikh Mahmoud, is I remember we were in the the office about Wild Lake Village Center.
When you first started out.
Yes, sir. You first started Del Taqwa. And I was trying to learn my prayers. And the tashahhud I did not know in Arabic. And I said, do you have to know this in Arabic? He says, yes, you do. I was like, oh, boy, so I got to learn this now, too. So there was a lot of things that very welcoming. Del Taqwa was always very welcoming at that time. It was very much a welcoming environment.
Yeah, for those who do not know, eventually Brother Damani was a big member of the Shura.
Yeah, it's been like ages, but yes. So yeah, it's a long time ago, but it's like I said, being welcoming for all brothers. You know, someone to welcome us is always important, and sisters. I mean, sisters have different struggles than brothers. Brothers, I guess the struggle, you can hide your Islam and still be a good Muslim, right? You know, you can still be accepted by other people. But sisters, if they're trying to strive and they're wearing hijab, or if they try to do certain things, they don't hide it. They are out front and center. And that could be more of a challenge for them. Yes. It is their jihad. It is serious. It's a jihad. It's a jihad. And you have to honor and respect that and understand that. You know, for us, for me, you know, beginning you can choose to be Muslim, showing it one day and the other day maybe not. But if the sister's trying, they're out front all the time. Yes?
So as you mentioned that your parents, they ask you when the time comes for Eid al-Fitr and Adha,
Yes,
for
sir.
gifts and stuff.
Yes.
So do they accept the same thing from you when the Christmas and Easter come or no?
Do they expect the same stuff?
Yeah, that you're gonna...
No, we don't do Easter.
No, I'm just saying because...
Oh yeah, right. So it's kind of like this, and that's a tough thing for converts, because you don't want to offend your family.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, that's real serious, man. When you talk about, well, the Easter thing for my family wasn't a big, that kind of stuff, because it was just candy and stuff, so that was no big deal. But comes time for Christmas, comes time for, well, basically Christmas, that's it. You have other holidays that are kind of gray areas, Thanksgiving, all those other kinds of things. But I respected my parents, and I would be with them, but they knew what I did not do. Now, in the beginning, years ago, a lot of us were just totally throwing everything out. The whole bathtub, everything's gone. You know, as far as we became Muslim, everything. And there are some things you realize you could or could not do. But my parents knew that for my kids, we would, on Eid, they would come by. And the day of Eid, they would come by with the gifts for my kids. And they were the only grandkids, so they got spoiled. And they got used to it, so my kids never, they never had that experience of missing anything. They never had that experience.
Because mostly the words actually they have the same, as brother mentioned, it's very tough for them.
It's very tough.
Not only that, when you, being an outsider, like if I am outside and try to tell them, then it's not the way to give them dawah, to be a part of what they're doing.
Right.
So they get offended. No,
Right.
my parents, or he's my only son, or
Right.
you know, she's my wife. I'm trying to convince her or him, but I think you know.
See, the thing about you, and for the revert, they experience different challenges. For us that are, if we have a Muslim family and everything's with Islam for the last 100-something years, it's easy. Yeah, that's just what's going on. But when you want to rebuke some of your traditions and your family, there's issues that even within Muslim families. So you can imagine someone that's not Muslim dealing with their families and how they navigate that to keep a good relationship, but still a mutual respect for our belief systems, which is critical. So that's another thing that I think is important when you have new Muslims, to make sure that you are sensitive to what they may be experiencing, on how they make Islam a part of their life. So you're sensitive to some of the struggles that they're going through. especially when it comes to family and these holidays. A lot of sisters, yes, go ahead, sister, you want to say it,
And
yes.
also not just holidays, but different family life cycle events,
Yeah.
such as when those of us who have converted to Islam,
Mhm.
we have a non-Muslim family member who passes away, or
Yeah.
there's some other kind of big family event
Yeah.
that occurs.
Funeral.
Sometimes it feels like people who have been born Muslim don't know how to deal with us when these different really tough life events come about.
Yeah.
Because some of the things we would say to another Muslim we may not feel comfortable saying that to someone who is not Muslim.
Right,
And, you know, so to figure out what are ways to be supportive
right.
and understand that they have a different struggle and that there's all kinds of cultural differences about attending funerals or how do you give condolences, so many different things
Right.
that can be really challenging.
It can be very challenging. Yeah, very challenging. That's very challenging.
So have you gone through any of these, like when it comes to the funeral and stuff? I mean.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I have. In my extended family of Christians, and my wife's mother's side, they're Jewish, and so you know, pointing an example. There's an issue. I did tell you an issue I had lately about when my wife's grandmother passed away. And they want us to accompany, you know, to go to show their support and to go to their funeral home. And her brother is a rabbi. The pastor, he's a rabbi. Get that, right? So he's a rabbi. They all know I'm Muslim. They know my family's Muslim. They know and understand the difference, and they get humor into it. They have some humor. But they wanted to, there was some function, like, you know, because we've done interfaith dialogue before, going to churches and synagogues and so forth. And a lot of them have something where they want someone to cover their heads and that kind of stuff. And so I remember sitting down with this, called my Uncle Jack, and he's like, well, you know, when I go to the mosque, I take my shoes off. And when I go to the Christian church, I do what they're supposed to do, and I know I never see you wear anything on your head. I said, well, look, I have something to put on my head if you want me to respect your facility. And, but you know, I put it on. That thing, what you have, he says, I know, Damani, you have what you have, and I respect that. And so, you know, of course, we have our kufis and going to a place where most people are not Muslim and Jewish, and they have to respect that. But those are challenges we have all the time. I mean, and trying to support your family, and at the same time making sure you keep your deen in place. It's always constant. Wayakum, Shay got, you know.
Some people want to go to work now. I know.
Yeah, what to go to work because alhamdulillah, hopefully it's good. But yeah, alhamdulillah, thank you for
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh, and I really
Very, it's very moving experience for us.
alhamdulillah,
Listen to you.
alhamdulillah, and I appreciate it, and you know, I'm glad I could give something, and that. But as I always leave with people, just as our brothers and sisters know, they keep welcoming people to this team because, you know, it's open. It's not a closed club. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, I think that'll be it. Wa alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.